Hello and welcome to a new video on GameBaker. This time it's the release of 1.0. I'm quite pleased to show some of the new features that we have here. It's been some time since I made the last video. I had some technical issues with my computer dying and that kind of stuff, so had to get some new parts and get that built. But I have some more or less exciting news that I think fits pretty well into a stable 1.0 release. So we'll be going through that. Okay, so initially what I want to talk about is some of the more context-made UI that I've been working on. And what I mean by that is, here's an example. Instead of just having this not being enabled, it basically just tells you what's wrong. I kind of came to this because I was testing a lot and was sitting there myself wondering, wait, why is this not enabled? So yeah. Basically here it's saying, okay, add mesh in mesh info tab. Okay, we'll go into the mesh info. We're going to add the low poly. It's our nice pillar here again. I could use a better model at some point, but I'm sorry, I don't have so much time right now. Yeah, we'll be hanging with the pillar for now. Okay, other than that, these things are pretty similar to the last release. You can overwrite your bakes, set your settings, and so forth. You can pack your bakes. One important thing here is that packing will pack as PNGs. The way that Blender works is that if you have an image that is edited, you can only pack it as PNG. And a bake is pretty much exactly that. So just be aware of that. And it can decrease the quality of your image. But I had some good feedback on what could be required in terms of different formats and higher quality. So the image quality of the source bakes are quite higher than they were before. And so what you can do now is you can go in and set a path. Now, in my case, what you need to be aware of is that you need to uncheck the relative path, right? I think I talked about that last time as well. For some reason, in my case, it just immediately adds the absolute path. I'm not entirely sure why, but let's just say that it's the relative path. It would look something like that. And then a path here. It's going to say you need to use the absolute path. Another example of kind of the context sensitivity here. Okay, so just going to add, there we go. Okay, so now it's a global, or the absolute path. Yeah, so you have all your formats here. It defaults to PNG. And then you have different selections here that I've tested out and they work fine. So yeah, that's a new addition. Okay, so for the mesh info, there's not really anything different. So I've actually gone ahead and just put in, we already have the low poly here. I already generated the cage. If you want to see how that was done, you can go back to the, what was it, 0.9 version. Okay, and I'm just going to populate with high poly because it's pretty much the same. Just be aware that a lot of these changes are specific for 2.78. So if you're on 2.79, I can't guarantee that the generate cage is going to behave the same. I think that they did some small changes to the solidify modifier. I'm not entirely sure, but I'll check up on that. I just can't guarantee that it's going to work very well. Just be aware of that. Okay. So let's see. Right, so you have these different algorithms that we also had before, at least 4 of them. I had some feedback on actually adding direct and indirect lighting to the bake, to diffuse bake. I'm not going to be able to do that, at least not for this version. I had 2 weird results testing it out and it was way too slow. So that's not going to happen for now, at least. All right, we got 2 new baking algorithms. One is position and the other one is ID. So the position one is basically a gradient in the x-axis, y-axis, and z-axis. In this convention, even though it's not exactly to Blender's convention, y is the up axis. The reason also being that it just makes it easier to understand that x, y, z is RGB. So you can kind of understand the channels, well, if you bake it out like this, and you need to separate the channels. It just makes it much easier. The ID map can be based on vertex colors or different materials that you might have. And you can enable or disable RGB, which basically means that you can get one out that is grayscale. All right, I'm going to go ahead and do a small demonstration here. I'm just going to use a couple of maps because you can watch the other videos to get an overview of the first stuff that I made here. So I'm just going to try and do, let's see, normal map and position and ID. Actually, I'm going to wait a bit with position. I'll tell you why after. So we're just going to do normals and ID for now. I'm going to do it on the materials. Oh yeah, so if you forget that to have your high poly visible, it's going to give you a smaller reminder now. So that's nice because I keep forgetting. So yeah, might be useful. All right, so we have that visible, and if we just take a look at our high poly here, we can see that it has some beautiful coloring. So it has a couple of different materials. We can see here. We're going to project them on as ID on the low poly. So we'll keep them both visible here. All right, everything is set up. That's good. And we're just going to hit bake. Okay, so a small new addition happened that you might be able to see here a bit. So what changed is that now when you're adding new bakes, unless they're overriding the existing map, they're just going to be aligned along this x-axis here. It's a little more neat and clean to look at if you're doing all the bakes initially. All right, so we've got a normal, and then we got our ID here. Just going to jump to the ID map. Let's try to hook that up. Okay. Yeah. All right, looks good. We got what we wanted. You can get a bit of jagged edges here, but that's really both due to the low resolution and the fact that you are projecting from a high poly mesh, so this stuff might happen. And this is just due to the margin, so it's just some color bleeding. All right, so that's the ID. I can also show an example of vertex coloring. So in this case, we actually have, let's see, there we go. We have some vertex colors here. It's going to do the exact same thing. That it's just going to take any individual coloring and ID it as you'd expect. But we can try to do it without RGB this time. So in this case you would, see, I forgot. So in this case you would get a grayscale image instead. And I got some good information on that actually. So a lot of the grayscale baking is now done through the non-color data. So thanks for that feedback. Also the algorithms are doing it the same way. Okay, let's have a quick look. All right, yeah, so there we have our grayscale. They might look a bit close, those colors, but they should be, yeah, they're different, as you should be able to tell. All right, so the reason I didn't do the position is that in most cases, by my logic, you wouldn't really need to project this on. You really just want the object itself and where it is in space or relative to itself. And so you can project it from the high poly. I just haven't gotten really good results, so I wouldn't advise that. But yeah, so I don't know if I'm gonna make it better or if I can. So for now, it's just gonna be for the low poly. But let me just demonstrate that. All right, so okay, we're also baking the normal. Oh, yeah, all right, good. So got the position here, and as you can see, getting a position map. Oh, there we go. Okay, so just to better demonstrate it, let's pull out a converter. All right, so we can see the red channel, the x-axis, got the green channel, which I told you it's going to be the up vector, or the up axis, and the B, which is in this case, the green channel here. So that's basically how that works. That kind of wraps up the additions for this release. please do give me any feedback or something in the comments of the video or on mail or wherever, and I'll gladly have a look at it, or any proposal or requests. I think next the next steps is really to jump to 2.79, where I'm going to be focusing more on PBR exports, and there might be some changes there in terms of still supporting 2.78, but I'll make it very clear if there's a version change and it has a bigger impact. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next update.